Reusse Unchained, presented by Josh Arnold, investment consultant, Mr. Money Talk. So yesterday we were doing
By the way, I hate to be unfaithful, but I've been drinking quite a bit of this stuff, and it's got more caffeine in it than Diet Coke does, apparently. It'll wake you up.
the morning energy drinks.
Yes,
Pat has
Zola.
discovered.
Zola.
Judd's
whatever
on
it is.
ninth cup of coffee before 9 a.m. and Pat's on his third Zoa energy drink.
That's right.
Pat proving once
Right.
again that it's never too late to change.
No, as long as
78
it's
years of Diet Coke
9.
just went out the window.
as long as it's got caffeine in it, we don't care. It's supposed to be. Somebody was drinking this one day, and they said they got a terrible amount of caffeine, and I said, "Good,
Good.
you know."
Maybe Diet Coke has a branding problem. It should be branded as an energy drink. Really,
Yes,
that's
right.
what get
That
more
should.
the young
Yes,
crowd.
that's- The non-caffeine ones, they shouldn't even sell that stuff, for God's
Exactly.
sakes. Anyway,
What's it?
Anyway.
So you are the resident, historian here. You go back. Your catalog goes back further
Yes.
than any of us.
Yes.
And on our Judd's Practice Notes episode of Purple Daily yesterday, we sort of stumbled into we think that this is the biggest Vikings-Lions game in the history of the two franchises, if you account for both teams being top five-ish in the NFL at the same time.
When Billy Sims came here, way back when, I'd have to look that up to see what the Vikings were at that moment when they came in here, Billy Sims. But that was in the dome already because he got hurt in the dome. So it probably is, yeah, because I think the Vikings were past their glory back then and just kind of hanging on. So Billy Sims getting hurt here was a huge moment. He took a bad step, and they were going places back then. And but it is phenomenal. And hey, it's not the Vikings' fault that there have been so few Vikings-Lions games that meant anything. Okay, let's
the
point
thing,
out
yeah.
that this is not a poor reflection on the Vikings as a franchise. In fact, one of my column ideas for Sunday, I don't know if I'm going to run it, is how this universe, our sports universe, just is really. There's big disturbances in the sports universe around here when the Lions are good. It's just unbelievable. It has been so, what they've meant positively to the Minnesota Vikings is unbelievable. How even when you were terrible, you beat them at least once, often twice. I mean, it's my stat again. I'll go back to it. Tyson and Chile were 16-1 against the Lions, and we're not considering them Hall of Fame coaches here in Minnesota either. They were 16-1 against the Lions, and I, of course, before the year started, said they were overrated. They're going to flop, and then the first two games it looked like they might be overrated. And since then, they've looked really good, except now they lost their best player. So that's it. Just like years ago when he was a running back, it was Billy Sims, and now before they play here, they lost Aiden Hutchinson, who's probably at least they're as important as they had anybody on their team, I think. So, but
Yeah.
yes, it is.
7.5 sacks.
But I'm not going to argue with you. I'd really have to check.
Because the
and
last
see if
time the
they-
Lions were, I would say, universally regarded as a team that is one of four that could win the Super Bowl was probably before the Super Bowl. Like it was probably in the 50s.
Yes, yeah, well, yeah,
Right?
that's right. Well, their last title was
57.
Their last title was with Bobby Lane, hard drinking Bobby Lane, who was famous for. They celebrated the fact that he went out and got drunk after every game, and they could see him downtown roaming around 2 days after they won a game. He was I think Texas A&M guy. He was from Texas A&M guy, but he was, you could still find old 89-year-old Lion fans. Yeah, we never replaced Bobby Lane, So, yeah, I mean those games at Tiger Stadium when the Vikings first came here were good. The Lions were better than the Vikings then. But I've already brought this up too. I ran across this a few years ago. When they were, the Lions and the Vikings were, when they were redoing all the divisions there, when they were expanding and bringing in the AFC, the Lions tried to get the Vikings in a different division. They did not want the Vikings in the same division because this was, Alan Page was coming up, and they saw that the Vikings were going to be good finally,
You know
and
what? In
they
retrospect,
didn't want them.
they were right about that
Yes,
instinct.
But
they
it didn't
were.
matter because they sucked for so long.
Oh well, I mean, Bill Ford, William Ford. I've told this story 100 times that we're in Pontiac Silverdome. The Ford family basically made Detroit. They were they put their
Right.
car manufacturing plant there and made Detroit.
Right.
And he's getting in the elevator, and all these drunken redneck Lions fans are yelling these horrible profanities at Bill Ford after a game because they stunk. It was a Viking game, and I remember that him sitting there he and Mrs. Ford, who's I think just died about 2 weeks ago or something, right? Very, very recently. She was still the chairman of the board, and they're sitting there at the elevator, and all these people are screaming at them. But we had some fantastically games against inept. The one I remember is a Thanksgiving game. They let the writers get on the plane to come back that time, and it was a game in the silver. It was in the Silverdome, and it took 2.5 hours, and it was like the they never got a first down. The Vikings the Vikings, I don't know what they beat them by, but it was like Bernsey was coaching then, and it was just a complete ass kicking. But the Vikings, the second half, didn't try to do anything. They just ran out the clock because the Lions couldn't do anything. But I remember that. I remember the total. I think the Lions had 60 yards that day, something like that.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Wikipedia has a Vikings-Lions rivalry page where they go
Yes.
through.
Oh, yeah.
So in the
What's
70s,
the all-timer? Yeah, 70s. Okay.
well, yeah. So, a couple things. So in the 70s, the Vikings were 17-3 against the Lions. But in the 2000s, in like 2000 through 2009,
Yeah.
they were 18-2.
Yes.
Tyson Childress.
Yeah. And this is not remembered as a golden era of Viking football either. I mean, they were pretty good, but until the whole Randy thing, the Culpepper, and they had a good, they were not bad, but yeah, they were 18-2, 17-3. But Bud was what all time? Did they get Bud's record in there all time against
We'd have
them?
to do the hand math here, but
But he's
so
got
the
much.
70s, he got all those victories, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah. He was, I mean, he was. I think at one time I remember one time that he'd beaten them like they had a tie in like 11 games or 11 or 12 games. They beat
26, 8, and 1 for Bud
26,
Grant.
Oh, you
8,
got a
1.
tie.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Bud
That's
is
right.
not in Canton without the Lions. He's not a Hall of Famer without the Lions.
well,
But
from a franchise perspective, so the Vikings as a franchise are 90 games over 500, 40 games over 500 against the Lions.
yes, they're the
Wow.
they're the White Sox of this season. And everybody we had this great year. We were 12-1 against the White Sox. Okay, and yeah, it is, the ineptitude has just been incredible. And nobody was worse. They were never worse than when that idiot Matt Millen was running them, too. By the way.
What are you talking about? Those are some of the greatest years of Lions football to go watch.
Oh, they were fantastically fun, but it was. And the funny thing, I've always said this about Millen, he was, when he was with the Raiders, he was the greatest interview in the history of mankind. Smart and funny and give you great stuff, but they hired him and he had no idea what the hell he was doing. He was it was just, they just hired him because of his personality. The biggest problem with him all through the years is, I mean, they hired some idiot coaches, but it was the general manager. They had the guy Russ Thomas, right? Wasn't it, Judd? Way back, yeah. Russ Thomas. He was Bill Ford's drinking buddy. He was just a drinking buddy that they had, and they'd get together and have a bunch of cocktails after the Lions got beat 52-7 and talk about what they were going to do.
One of the most remarkable things about the ineptitude of that franchise is, for as brutal as the National Football League is on business decisions, right? Yes. They do not care about anything. That they left the early Thanksgiving Day game to them through all of that.
Yes.
How did it not get stripped away?
I think until when did the Cowboys start the tradition? Late '60s. Before then, it was just when we first
Yes.
got in the league.
It
It
was-
was just the Lions.
And it
That
was
the
Packers-
and then Packers Lions. Yeah.
Packers,
Packers.
Lions. That's all
Yes.
it was.
Yes,
Every year.
that was the game. But when we had the radio show going, Phil, and then later on when we split up and had it, we're getting ready to play the Lions. Get Rob Parker on the phone. That was
Oh, yeah.
we get Rob Parker. Even when he was working in L.A., you could get 15 minutes of wonderful Lion abuse from Parker every time you called him. I called him last year one time when they were playing good. I said, "What's going on here?" And he said, "They'll screw it up. Don't worry about it." But yeah, it's they've been incredible in a league dedicated to parody. They've managed to avoid it for a long time. And isn't this guy the last guy you would have thought that would turn it around when they hired him, Campbell? Like this guy just
He
came
felt
off
he
at
felt
the
like a
Student
really
Fire-
short shelf life
Yes,
guy.
yeah, he did. He still might be, but it's. I mean, they're still doing idiotic things, but they're doing them when they're 25 points ahead. Like last week, they're, running trick plays when it's they're what 37-9 or something, but. You're down there on the goal line, score a touchdown. Don't throw a pass to
the conference title game against San Francisco, like there was definitely some stuff there. I think, Pat, that you're exactly right. I think it's more so the GM is good. Like they've got a good roster now. They finally built a good roster. You're right about that.
Drafting has been terrific. I mean, well, you can go back to the era when they had like the second pick and the third pick one year. They picked two wide receivers. Both years they picked two wide receivers, Charles Rogers, and then who was the other guy? Maybe maybe Johnson was good, But
They whiffed on another one though too.
Oh, they whiffed on a by. They've just been terrible drafters, and it's how would it be to be a Lions fan all these years? To just get up and go out there on Thanksgiving and blah blah blah, and just all these years and just have nothing to show for it.
Just get your ass kicked. The Lions, the Lions Thanksgiving game heritage goes back to right after
30s,
World War
right?
II.
Oh,
Well,
okay.
the NFL had a bunch of Thanksgiving games throughout like the 20s and the 30s.
really?
They would have a bunch of them every year.
Sure.
But coming and then they took a 3 or 4 year hiatus during World War II. But the Lions even in like the late 30s, but it became after World War II, starting in 1945. It was Lions every year. And then we went through a stretch in the 50s where it was the only game on Thanksgiving for like a decade was Packers versus Lions.
Yes,
Yeah,
right.
that's all they played.
Hey, wasn't what I don't know if they still do, but then Detroit had a pretty good. I think they had a Thanksgiving parade back in those days too, right?
Did they?
Kind of
Okay.
a famous because I mean that's when their downtown was. They had money in that town, and they had big department stores that were famous, and they,
Cars, music, department stores.
It was going, and then it had a little slump there after the riots. So
Little slump.
what was the
40-year slump.
60 were the riots 64? Were there 64? I don't know.
The King riots?
They burned down the city in 64.
I thought those late
basically.
60s, yeah.
Yeah,
Or
sometime in there.
67.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's right, 67. The Twins, I remember, they had the Twins and the Lions. The Twins were in there to play the Tigers, and Tigers were good then, right? And
Yeah.
and I remember they had them. The Twins come in and play day games so they could get people to stay home and stop, at least take a break from burning the city down to watch the baseball game. So yeah, that was all hell broke. That was terrible. And it's funny, I was there for the first game at the Comerica Park, right? And I flew in that morning. The Twins were starting there. I think it was the first game ever there, and I ended up parking like 7 blocks away to the west. And by the time I got out, it was a little sketchy. It was a little sketchy at 8 o'clock at night because you get about 2 blocks out of 2 blocks beyond that Ford Fox Theater there. There's still some remnants of the good old days there. So it made, you know, and I was a little quicker then than I am now, but not a hell of a lot. So
I was there for a Packers Lions Thanksgiving game in 2003, and
yes.
the Red Wings traditionally play a
Oh,
Thanksgiving Eve game. So
wow.
I was going to go, and we were staying at that Marriott, the huge one
Yes,
downtown
right. Yeah.
on the outskirts of or the
Yes.
fringes. Anyway, the Joe where the Wings played is literally blocks away. So I
Yes.
went to the front
Down the
desk and
hill. Yeah.
yeah, down exactly. So I went to the front desk and I said, "What's the best way to walk to the Joe?" And the
They
person
said,
looked at me and said, "You don't walk." I had to take a cab like a couple of blocks. They're like, "You do not want to walk that,
yeah,
sir."
yes. That was, yeah, you did take a lot of cabs there, but yeah, in the 70s, we'd go out in Detroit at night and get hammered, and find we'd eat at some restaurant. I can't remember what it was, and then we'd stumble around down there and hope that hope that we looked poor enough so they wouldn't mug us. So it was, you know, alcohol was more important than safety back then. So
Yeah, yeah. Hey, I have a Twins thing for you, but
okay,
let's talk about where to get a great car. Hey, you can't find them in
from
Detroit
no,
anymore, but no, you can. But where
yes,
in
you
the Twin
can.
Cities?
The Jim Paul and Brett Paul's Valley group of GM dealers right now. Those Sierra heavy duty. I saw one of those Sierra. I parked next to one of those Sierra heavy duty trucks. You got to be careful. These things are big, man, and they're heavy duty, and a lot of people love them. And they're fully stocked in the Sierra truck, and they have brought back the best truck salesman in town to join them too. So go out to Apple Valley and ask for the truck guy, and they'll bring him to you, and he'll make a deal with you for a truck. But we also have 4 varieties of Buick SUVs, from the smaller ones to the larger ones. We have the new Buick Regal station wagon that's supposed to be fantastic. We're selling a lot of those. And the interest rates are low right now, 0.9, 1.9 on some select vehicles. How about that? That's free money. And also, factory rebates are back too, with the Buick products and the GMC products, and great used cars out there. I've bought 2 or 3 used cars from Jim Paul and Brett Paul's Valley Group of GM dealers, and they're in fantastic condition, and they'll give you a good deal on them. Veteran sales staff, Hastings and Apple Valley, Valley uh, car dealers is the place to look up. Valley Group of car dealers. Look that up, and they'll find out what the stock is, and it'll be terrific.
So, all right, last couple minutes here on this Friday, Reusse Unchained. Do I have Twins derangement syndrome if my first instinct after watching that classic Guardians Yankees back and forth battle last night, as the crowd's going crazy, you got Noel, the big Christmas, tying it in the ninth after
Yes,
Judge and Stanton put the Yankees
yes.
ahead. If my first visceral reaction was, "Damn you, Twins and Pohlads, for robbing us of October baseball."
Well, we weren't going to catch the Guardians anyway, but yeah, it was. I mean, it was fun to see somebody beat the Yankees, it would be fun to see Cleveland get back in this series, right? But I'm not sure. When you start Boyd against them and end up winning a ball game, that's pretty good. You have to rally, but he's terrible. Remember when he used to be good when he had a live arm?
Tigers,
Now he's
yeah.
just throwing slop up there. But yeah, it was a fun game. You know what we have done here and we talked about this a couple days ago. We've got the time of game back up there over 3 hours again.
Oh,
No,
yeah.
the old speed up rules are
Yeah.
suffering a terrible defeat here. But I'm very depressed about the Dodgers rolling into the World Series. I'm an anti-Dodger guy, and I was rooting for the Mets, but that's not going to happen. You know what else I want to say about the Yankees? When you're playing them 70% of the time, when you're playing them, Stanton is a stiff, right? You can strike him out; he doesn't do anything. But when he's red hot like he is right now and has been for this postseason, that makes him a little more difficult. That's not a great lineup. the Yankees have. Would you say it's not? I mean, you got
It's very
Judge, you got him, but
top
after
heavy.
the last,
It's top
yeah,
heavy.
the last 3 or 4 guys are not.
Yeah.
The Dodgers is not a great lineup either, but I think they should just hit Ohtani in the back with a fastball every time he bats. Just get him, put him on first base. Why bother? Why give him a chance to hit a 900-foot home
It's
run?
been
to start the
suggested,
game?
yeah, that he should just be
And
walked, just
yeah,
intentionally walk him.
just get him off the plate, and just you don't have to hit him. I don't want to hit him up above the shoulder. I just want to hit him right in the middle
Right
of
in
the
the
back.
spine?
Spine. Aim for the spine. Do something like that.
maybe
But,
the elbow. Just,
yeah,
just-
elbow hurts. But
Give him
of
in the
course,
hand.
he's probably got everybody. Remember when Tom Kelly used to whine about the armor that the hitters were
Yeah.
using? They now all go up there like they're in one of those shows that they have in these dinner theaters where you got the guys dressed up as knights. They go. What do they call those places? I don't know if they still have them, but
I'm
they used
envisioning
to
like the
have.
kid from A Christmas Story going out in the cold with.
Yeah, right. It is, but that was a monumental game because I actually turned the sound off and wasn't paying much attention, and all of a sudden I looked up and the guy in the ninth inning was running around the bases. The big Christmas, he swings in the same place every time, and if it hits his bat,
Yeah.
it's going a long
Yeah.
ways because
By the way, the Spanish language call of that home run was
I bet it's
incredible. I
fantastic.
retweeted it. Feliz
Yeah.
Navidad!
That's great. I'll have to look that up. Yeah, it's Tom Hamilton's call was pretty good too. I haven't
Yeah.
heard it, and then the winner had to be pretty good. I was in a car when Lane Thomas hit the salami the other day against him, and I don't care whether Detroit wins or the Cleveland wins, and I got chills listening to Hamilton in the car,
Yeah.
So
His calls are still
He's
fantastic.
fantastic, and his whole game is fantastic. And I wrote a comment on him a couple of years ago on how he has avoided. That was the first year they were the Guardians, and if you've called a team tribe for 20 years, how do you break the habit of calling them the tribe? And I'd listened to him a couple of times, and he was not doing it. And he told me the way he did it was training game. He never said us. He never said we. He never said Cleveland. He made himself say, the Guardians pitcher just threw a ball to the Guardians first baseman. He basically just said Guardians in front of everything he said about Cleveland in spring training to get himself in the habit. So
Yeah, it'd be so hard. Oh my gosh. Well,
all right,
we got to
Lynx,
run, but
go
Lynx,
Go Lynx. We'll have
get it back to
19
New York.
We'll have 19,000 in there tonight. If you win tonight, then the pressure's all on them. Then they
Should
might
be a
come
little
out.
more festive than the Wolves preseason game Judd and I attended last night at Target.
And they didn't play anybody. How'd Luka look though? My guy Luka tore it up.
29-8, man. He was
They gotta play him.
Denver played everybody.
well,
yeah,
kind of. Jokic didn't take a
played.
shot in the entire first half. He was
I
just getting
thought it.
cardio in.
I read his line, and he didn't do it. He waddled up and down the court.
You know what
It
he does? He still comes into camp to get into shape. That's
Yeah,
what I like
that's-
about
yeah.
him.
that's
He
good.
literally, it was cardio
and-
only last night for him.
And
Yeah.
by the way, he doesn't succeed until about January
Correct.
either. He might
Correct.
he might come in to get in shape, but he's still waddling about. He and Doncic, they don't rush into that getting in shape stuff. So
No, set the
Anyway.
beer down and get some laps. Yeah.
I don't know what they're gonna do with all these players though. My God, they got too many players.
They're loaded.
Joe Ingles is probably. I wonder if some team wants a wily veteran because with Minot playing this way, he's not going to get any time. So anyway, yeah,
Good
they got
problems.
a lot of players. When are we opening?
Tuesday at Los Angeles Lakers, national TV.
Ooh, good. All right, let's kick their ass. See you.
All right, see you, Pat.
Bye.
Reusse Unchained, presented by Josh Arnold.